Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as always, we'll date stamp this. It's year 4, blog 16, or in legacy numbers, blog 172, and it's the 8th of June 2025. And yeah, the months just fly by now. Maybe it's because everything that's been going on in my life with my mother, but even before then, I think I've commented before that most of my life always seemed to be waiting for the next paycheck to pay the bills. You know, I'd get to around about the second week of the month and all my bills have been paid, and I'd have just enough money to get you to the end of the month. Sometimes the payday would actually happen on the Monday after the weekend, and you were strained for that last weekend not being able to do anything because payday was on the Monday and you were back at work. I'm sure we've all come across those stories through our lives, and maybe that's sometimes when we look at nostalgia and we think back that we sometimes love to think about when we were at school where we didn't have all of these sort of problems. But hey, we are where we are. I'm in my just past my mid-50s, and it is what it is. And I didn't think I'd be where I was today. But would I have it any differently? Well, yeah. I'd love my dad back. I'd love my mum to be the way that she was. But I made my choices. I live with them. You know, that's something that you've got to do, haven't you, in your life? So I look outside like I normally do, and it's a cold but sort of like bright day. No, I wouldn't say it was exceptionally sunny. I've managed to put the flowers that my mum bought into the pots. Finished that sort of like last weekend. And, you know, at the end of the day, after work on Monday and Tuesday, the only one I haven't done is the rose that needs to go in the garden, and that's because the place I wanted to put it in, which is the fence on the left, which collapsed, my uncle needed to use sort of like one of those sort of like jackhammer type things to cement the posts in, and that side of the border has always been filled with rocks, pebbles and terracotta and all sorts of stuff. And when I tried to dig, I couldn't get far enough down in the ground, even with soaking it, for a rose, you know, to grow. So I'm going to have to put it on the right-hand side, and that's the side I haven't done any weeding in yet. So I've still got some work to do, still got some stuff to do. And that's sort of like all of that out the way. I think we'll do the war and we'll talk a little bit about me. So we'll get the news, should I say, not the war, the news out the way. But it starts off with the war like it does all the time. And the reason for that is it's how my blog started, really. The war had just begun 2 weeks in when I started my blog. So what have I written down? Russia has hit Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, with a massive drone and bomber attack, killing 4 people and injuring nearly 60. 2 people were killed in Russian streets on Kherson in the southern Ukraine. Kharkiv's mayor reported 48 drones, 2 missiles and 4 glide bombs were used against the city on Friday night. Reports of more drones were used on Thursday, which is reported as a direct response to the train attacks last week. Officials say that the worst is yet to come as Russia planned to retaliate against Operation Spiderweb. Yeah, some of my chicken scratch, I do apologise for that. But yeah, lots of retaliation. More about prisoner release delays to give to each side, Ukraine and Russia. Not much about peace plans, not much about Trump or any of that sort of stuff, which was fully in the news 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and then it's all been attack, attack, attack. You know, very little. You know, what can I say about it other than we want the war to end? Not quite sure what the holdups are now. But anyway, I'll have to look into that maybe. I only tend to look at the war sort of like on the day of this blog. Um, I want it to end, you see. I don't look at the day to day of it. And it's probably a little bit the same with the UK news. I look at it from a week's perspective. I do listen to Radio 5 a lot, but it's all about minor things. And I listen to the Prime Minister's questions and answers on a Wednesday. It's about it, really. So the UK's equally got very little in it. Unions pile pressure on Rachel Reeves, she's the Chancellor, by the way, to avoid cuts and induce the wealth tax. Wealth tax has been mentioned for years and years and years. The Conservatives, the Labour, all of them, where we keep saying, look, tax the wealthy. They can afford it. You know, I do know it's a bit more complex than that, but it does sort of like make sense in my head a little bit. They've always turned around and said that what they will do is that the wealthy will abandon the UK because of the taxes. We've seen many times actors in the past turn around and say, you know, we're going to become tax exiles. We'll move over to America and live over there and work in Britain and make it so that we are only in the country for 3 months if you continue to tax us unfairly. All I know is that they could give a little bit, they give a lot more. Wow, a little bit more from all of them would give a huge chunk of cash to specific areas that we need, like the NHS and so forth. So, yeah, I do see it. We had another world. Is it the World or the European Cup match this week? So England's manager has criticised the players' attitude as England scraped by with a win over Andorra. That was yesterday. I didn't watch the match. I was doing something else. I think I was actually ironing, I think, my mother's stuff for the next day. I tend to find that ironing's harder to do. It takes a lot of time. Generally, I wash the clothes and hang them on hangers all during the week with very little ironing being done. But I try to do it when I can. Another story was an EastEnders star. I don't watch EastEnders, by the way. Jamie Brofswick has been suspended by the BBC for unacceptable language. I didn't read any further, but it's just another interesting BBC article of, language, Twitch, social media, all of that sort of stuff. And a good news story, Bruce Springsteen brought on Paul McCartney for a Beatles cover at the Anfield gig last night. So Bruce Springsteen's obviously doing a tour. Paul McCartney was there. He got him up on stage, did a Beatles cover. Everybody went mad. All nice. We love all those sort of like stories because they're sort of like good news stories, aren't they? So pretty much that's the news. And when it comes to me, even on my piece of paper here, I haven't written down much that's been going on in my life. I knew that on Monday when I went back, I was going to be having some talks about changes in my job. We're going to do what they call role-based and alternate every week so that after a couple of months, everybody can do each other's job, which is, I think, a very good idea. What has also been stated, which I totally agree with as well, is that we don't want to make the roles so tight that managers have to micromanage your time. You know, they don't want to be able to go, where were you at 1 o'clock? Where were you at 11 o'clock? All of that sort of stuff. All they want is did the job get done at the end of the week? Is the roles that we've got so overstretching you that you can't get the jobs done? So yeah, there's all of that sort of stuff to consider, and it seems very much it's on the right track. They don't want to do all of that. Saying that, meetings. There's all these meetings that are going on. I have one at 9:30, then I have a weekly one as well that's on at 11:30. Then there's a meeting about how the roles are going at 2 o'clock. By this point, it's like I've only ever had an hour max to actually get the jobs done. So yeah, bit tricky. So just gonna come back in a minute because there's a little bit of noise coming through from the back. I won't be a moment. Yeah, sorry about that, but my sister was doing the washing up and listening to YouTube while she was doing it, so the noise was coming through. I don't know if the mic picked it up, but I just went and shut the kitchen door to see if I could just buffer things away. I don't want to stop my sister by not being able to listen to her stuff while she's doing a horrible task like the washing up. But it does mean I forgot quite where I was. Work it was, wasn't it? That's right. So yeah, Monday and Tuesday was all about what you're going to do during the week. Meetings slow me down. Tuesday was difficult anyway because I have physio in the afternoon, and if you include my lunch as well, so the physio is about an hour and a half, but there's also a 15-minute journey and a 15-minute journey there, so that's 2 hours plus my lunch, an hour. If I start that off at like 1 o'clock, that's 2, 3, 4 o'clock, finish work. If I start that off at 12, I've got 12, 1, 2, 3, I've got about an hour left. It doesn't help much. So this is why I start work in the morning, usually about 7 a.m, trying to just get the odd jobs done. And if I do that for 2 or 3 times during the week, I've made up those 3 hours, if you see what I mean. So this is where I'm saying the micromanaging thing, I'm so happy that they don't want to come down too tightly on things. So that's pretty good. So really Monday and Tuesday was all work, and when it comes to what was going on in my personal life, it was all about trying to get my painkiller tablets. You may remember last week I was talking about the fact that they didn't have my painkiller tablets, and I had to go and get a special prescription department to reissue another one because the pharmacists made a mistake. I couldn't stay to get that prescription on the Friday because my sister has to leave to go home at 2 o'clock. So I couldn't pick them up in the evening, but there was Saturday. And on Saturday it wasn't ready. So on Monday had to go down, and they didn't have enough supply until Tuesday. And I finally got them Tuesday, but by then I was down to taking 1 or 2 of those painkiller tablets a day where I normally take 4. So you can imagine, but cutting down on the Saturday and only going back to normal Tuesday, I was in quite a lot of pain. It just shows as well that there isn't a dependency in regards to addiction on these. The pain is still there. I noticed it more how uncomfortable I was at night trying to go to sleep than I did any other time. Walking sort of like frees up my back a little bit, puts a bit of pressure on my knee, but because I sit down at my job, the knee pain sort of like goes away. It's sort of like a feeling of, if you've ever had this chemical rubbed into your skin called deep heat, it's sort of like that when I finish walking. A sort of like a sunburn type feeling in the top of my knee. My back is just a painful thing. That just feels like I've got bone hitting bone, and that's not good at all. So the painkillers really are important to me. But I've got something called gabapentin, which sort of helps as well. It enables me to walk further. I don't get out of breath, don't get me wrong. It's just I hobble a little bit. So Wednesday comes along. Wednesday is more about what's going on outside of work than anything. Because I have my little talk with Ian Hill, the Ramblings, and it's the bit I look forward to. It's midweek. You know, I get to this point on Wednesday and I wake up in the morning and I go, oh, I'm only halfway through. But by the time I get to Wednesday evening, I'm halfway through. I've just finished that last third day, and I'm now going to have a nice chat with my friend Ian Hill, the Ramblings. And if you haven't subscribed to him, I do implore you to actually have a little look at the channel at least. But also, you might find something fun there. And we talk about just about everything. And Ian's been in a pain the last couple of weeks. But I think he's getting better. He seemed more chipper this week. We had lots of laughs during my talks. The talks have been a little bit more difficult for me because they start at 8 o'clock and my mum goes to bed around about 9ish. So I'm sort of like in that hour in and out, if you see what I mean. Getting my mum ready for bed, getting her into bed. My sister's here, so she can do most of the chore, but we both have to work together to get her into bed, because we have to sort of like straighten her out and make sure that her head is at the top of the bed, and that requires me to pull her up by at the top of the bed and get the pillars and the angle right of the hospital type bed that they've supplied to us. So yeah, I'm then back sort of like at the computer here around about 10 past, 9:15, and it's all systems go until the end. But it wouldn't be very good for other sort of like chat panels. I wouldn't have thought. They wouldn't have probably have stuck by me. And it might be one of the reasons why I'm not on many chat panels, or it could be that they just don't want me. I am a little bit out of touch, I suppose. I say an awful lot in my blog, so there's not too much extra to add. But I've always enjoyed myself when I'm on chat stuff. So, there's no sour grapes from me. In fact, I'm really enjoying my time with Ian. It gets me that one little pleasure, and then I can do all my other little bits myself, can't I, during the week? So that's good. But I'm disappointed that I didn't manage really to do too much this week, being back at work. It's why I tried to do so much when I was off work. But I've got some things planned that I need to get done. They just need finalising as a document, as a piece of paper, for me to then do the research of screenshots and stuff, and then basically get the videos out there. So yeah, things move forward and I'm going at my own pace. It's even been difficult to copy the video files into Odyssey, which is a program which is a website which I talked about last week, where I can back up my YouTube videos. It takes a long time to upload them and put the text in, and I've uploaded, I don't know, it must be somewhere about 10 or 11, and that's taken me a couple of hours, and that's because I don't have the subscriber base for the syncing process. They do mention that even for people that do have the subscribers, they also will get the same message, and it's purely because of how YouTube don't like linking to other similar platforms, so they make it difficult for the sync process to work. Like I say, I don't know the background on how YouTube works or how other programs work. Maybe it's an API thing, I don't know. I doubt it. By the way, look up API if you want to know what that means. but it could be a formatting thing, could be all sorts. I always thought that if you gave the permission, YouTube opened the gate. But obviously there are many sort of like gates, and part of it is a security breach from their point of view, possibly. But we'll see. So Wednesday, we've talked about Wednesday. So Thursday and Friday cuts things very, very tight. One of the jobs that I was asked to do at work was to do some work instructions, and there were 2 of them. Work instructions come quite simple to me, or they did when I was working for the probation service, because I was doing them all the time. But if you take yourself away from writing work instructions for about 2 years, then basically you become rusty, you know. And there's all the screenshots that you need to do, and you need to put it into a structure that meets other documents. In other words, you can't write it in your own way. You need to write it in a format and a way that it matches others in the knowledge base. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, knowledge base. So I have to alter my stance and write it in a way that it's almost like writing with one arm behind your back. You know what I mean? It slows you down a little bit. But I got 95% of document 1 done on the Thursday, and that meant that I had one whole document to do on the Friday. But there was something that happened in the afternoon where a manager above my own came along and said, we need to do testing tomorrow. It is a priority. So I mentioned to my manager what that was, and he basically said, well, we still need it. Your work instructions. You're going to have to work between both, possibly do an hour on your work instructions, then an hour on testing, and keep going back and forth. Which would be very difficult on a Friday, because if you remember rightly, Friday is also a day that's quite busy for my mother, because she has some what I call quality of life things that I try and do for her, which doesn't take me away from work for too long, but it is getting her out the house and so forth. So yeah, all I can tell you is the work instructions got 95% complete for both of them. And the testing, which needs to be completed by Tuesday, also got over 60% completed. So we've got 40% of testing to do on Monday, and the work instructions I've got 5% to do on each of the documents, which needs to be completed before 9:30 on Monday. Cutting it fine, but I'm on track. So this is where I'm going, things are going all right. You know, it's a difficult thing, but I'm managing it. And like I say, Friday came and went. My mum looked lovely when she went to the hairdressers. I got her down there, got her back. That I think is a highlight. The next door to where I'm at, the cafe had just opened up. My sister took her there on Thursday. We worked out that the wheelchair didn't work for my mother, not because of the wheelchair itself, but it's the ramps that allow her to get over the step outside our house, which didn't work, and so therefore we've got to think of a new way of moving my mum around. But we still managed to get her to the cafe. She came out, and the word she used was, I really like their food, but I don't like their tea. It was weak. My mum likes strong tea. She likes it the way I make it. She likes it the way my sister makes it. She always criticises tea when she goes into a place that's like a cafeteria. Their tea is weak generally. Sometimes you can go into them and they give you a teapot and you brew your own. But most of the time these days it's in a cafe, tea bag in a mug, made quickly because the person behind the counter also has to serve the cakes, take the money, and get the orders in for the food. So yeah, it is what it is. I've always looked at the best cups of tea and coffee you can ever make are the ones you make yourself. And then if they're wrong, you can only blame yourself, can't you? So there is that. And Saturday is really more blog prepare. So really, there's not an awful lot else to say other than one item that arrived this week, which was a surprise when you consider what I said in Ian Hill the Ramblings live stream on Wednesday. So I'll talk a little bit about that when I get further down, because we're going to move to the shout outs and we're going to move to the comments, and parts of what I've just talked about will be in there. So I need to sort of like adjust things and not mention things too early. Okay. So just want to get to the shout outs and read these out quite quickly. Every single one of these I'm really appreciative of. Absolutely fantastic. They've all made me feel wanted and needed, and also have just asked general questions that they'd like my opinion of, which is one of the most important feelings for me, because it makes me feel relevant. I mean, we all need to be feeling wanted and needed, but that can come across as whiny. I don't mean it in that retrospect, but I also like to think of myself as relevant. If I don't think of myself as relevant, then basically I'm a fossil. I'm not required in life anymore. What is there for me to do? I'm living now just to take away money from the government in regards to pensions and that sort of stuff, and nothing in the way of proactively doing something for my legacy. So yeah, interesting point of view that, but I do think sometimes I might come across as whiny, and that's exactly what this diary should do, so I don't feel bad about it. So anyway, let's get the people that I wish to say thank you and salute to, and they are, in no particular order, Carl Todd, Denny, Steve's Gaming Part 2, Ian Hill the Ramblings, Martroid, Pugwall 36, I think that's his name, yeah, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, Robert's Retro Gaming, Runny Plays, and the Movie Dome UK, which is a new one to me. I'll read that one out in a little bit. And like I say, every single one of them has left a comment and made me feel very honoured indeed. So we might as well get to the comments, and I will just do that in a moment. I will be back in a second. And as I said, let's get on with the comments, and I'll try and sort of like do it in like I always do, which is in no order. In fact, it's just as I'm reading it as I see the comments listed down. And the first one is actually from Carl Todd, and he's put, "Hi Del, sorry for my absence recently. I just had a lot of things going on. I hope that things are going well for you and your mum. It was good to hear that you managed to have a day out. You need to take care of yourself too, so having even a small break will be good for you." And oh my God, yeah, that was much needed. It made me want more, but I also recognised that the next day it was back to normal. And those little things you can sort of look back and go, do you know what, I had a great day that day. So that was good. I only used BBSs a few times in the past. although it isn't a BBS, the integration of Assembly 64 on the new Ultimate 64 is fantastic. Being able to search for demos, SID songs and games, and then easily download them saves a lot of time. Oh yeah, absolutely. I tried to put across that BBS is not dead. You can actually still do it on the original hardware, as well as through emulation. You can basically mimic what was required for you to connect to a BBS, and there are sites that give you the domain name for you to connect to them. So it's still a lively and an expressive way to get your content out there, and exceptionally exciting for people that like to live in the past a little bit and remember how things were. It's great, and I hope I got that across. I think that you chose the worst episodes of the recent Doctor Who series to watch. Most of the earlier episodes were better. For a show that was soft rebooted to season 1, there's been so many callbacks to original characters and stories that it really makes you think, why did they bother if it was for fan service? I think that most fans have felt disappointed in how characters have been used and discarded so easily. Yeah, and I'd agree with that. Probably wouldn't quite agree with they're the worst ones to watch. I eventually, before season 2, got to see all of season 1, and I was disappointed with that. In fact, 2 of the episodes didn't even have the Doctor in it. And where I would say that 1 is acceptable, we had 1 even in the Christopher Eccleston period where he wasn't in it very much. It was more about Rose, I believe, and her dad and the church, from what I can remember rightly. But when you're down to 8 episodes and 2 of them don't even have the Doctor in, you've got 6 episodes. I mean, that's terrible, really. Like I say, a quarter of the actual season not having Shooty in it. I mean, that's poor. I must admit, I only saw episodes 1, 2, and 8, really, of the second season. Although I did watch a quarter of the Eurovision Song Contest one, which I felt was poor. But I stick by my guns that the final episode that was shown actually offended me a little bit. It was 40 minutes of loud bang explosion. This is Doctor Who with a final battle, and 30 minutes of whimsical stuff that was going nowhere, and ended with going nowhere and a publicity stunt. Atrocious. In fact, I think I was looking at some reports, and they said that the Doctor Who Unleashed little mini documentaries that they have at the end was better than the actual programme, and involved you more. And I'd probably have to agree with that. That's Doctor Who is not what it used to be, and I stick by my guns by saying it's just not written for me. It's not written for an old duddy like me. BBC and Disney obviously want a new audience. I am not that new audience. They want to have one little toe in the past to express how old the show is, but it's not enough. I think somebody said in a report this week that Ncuti Gatwa would be very disappointed if his whole tenure of being in the, as a doctor in Doctor Who, he didn't meet the Daleks. Did he meet the Daleks? No. There you are. But this is a set of circumstances, and I blame Disney for this. There was always at the end of season 1 this thing about Disney saying, well, we're not going to renew until we know it's a good show, and we won't know that until the end of season 2, so you're not greenlit for a season 3 till we know what the figures are like or what the general reaction of the public is at the end of season 2. And from that point of view, you've got an actor that's got to be sitting about, turning down roles, left, right, and centre, waiting to see whether something is being green-lit. Well, this is an up-and-coming actor that wants to do theatre work, wants to break out into America, is highly regarded and respected in the acting world because of his work in Sex Education, which I thought was a fantastic show, and a show that was far better treated in regards to being greenlit for another show than Doctor Who did in this particular soft reboot. So I'm not surprised that things ended the way that they did. And it's all internal bollocksy politics that's caused this. And it's the fans that lose out. That's all I've really got to say about it. There's not much more for me to say. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. I've got all the seasons. I've bought them regardless of whether I like them or not. I didn't like the Jodie Whittaker series at all, or should I say much, but I still bought them because they needed to be part of my set. So, you know, I don't like gaps. I don't like to say, yeah, I'm a huge fan, but by the way, I disregard anything past this point. It doesn't sort of like really work for me in that way. So, yeah, I've got pre-ordered season 2. Simple as that. But they'll probably sit on the shelf and I'll never watch them. It's like anything. If you're a fan of a particular artist in music, and they've brought out 40 albums, you don't want to have 36 of them and not have the other 4 because they just didn't fit in with your musical listening. You might as well have those 4 and then you can say you got the whole run. You see what I mean? It's a little bit like that with me. Maybe I'm in the wrong for thinking along those lines, but that's pretty much me. So I go with that. So yeah, no Cybermen, no Daleks, all of that sort of stuff. Characters brought back from decades ago that were in singular stories. They happen to be the strongest characters. In a way, what I'm trying to say there is characters that are malevolent and are like gods. But, you know, the fringe characters, the Zygons, the Ice Warriors, yeah, not seen at all. And some people might say, good. Seen far too many of them. But like in some ways, the Weeping Angels, which were only really introduced in this new modern 20-year section of Doctor Who. And I'd agree with that. The Weeping Angels, I think giving them a couple of years rest was definitely needed. But it's always nice to know what a new Doctor would do in a situation of seeing them. Would he be sticker shock scared? Would he take it in his stride? That sort of stuff. That's what we like to watch in Doctor Who, is how a new character is. And this particular Doctor seemed to cry an awful lot. I mean, we're talking weaker than Peter Davison's innocence persona. I mean, he was crying and emotional and all sorts of stuff. And hey, men should show their weaker side, but it was far too much for me. Anyway, let's go to some questions that you've mentioned. And it says here, and I'll just take a swig. I don't recall you saying anything about the recent Black Mirror series. I know that you like anthology series, so I was expecting you to talk about it. I may have missed it, or maybe you have been that busy that you haven't had a chance to see it. Any thoughts on it? Yes, you're quite right with your first statement. Just been too busy. I'll just talk a little bit about my setup. My Sky is on this television in here, and we've got a mini box which is in my mother's area, and you can record and you can show things, but I've got a telly at the end. You can probably just see the corner of it there, just there, boom, 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 bottom of the bed. And inside that, it's an oldish telly. It's just got a couple of USB ports and a HDMI port. And the two USB ports have got two little hard drives in them. It's got a Wi-Fi capability, and it connects to my little NAS setup, so that I can stream movies. Now, because of the USB setup, it doesn't have a Fire Stick, and the LG TV that it is, you can't update the web browser interface anymore. So even iPlayer doesn't work on it anymore. The app has been updated and it no longer works on my TV, which means that you need a Fire Stick or something else. And I've already got a Fire Stick on the back of this. And I don't like keep pulling it out and putting it in something else and all of that sort of stuff. And I tend to watch most of my stuff going to sleep at night, watching TV. So I'll go to bed as early as possible, like 10ish or so. Lie in the bed, start watching a bit of TV, fall asleep, and if I do, I can go back to where I was and watch it again. And to be quite honest, Black Mirror would only be available through Fire Stick unless I download it illegally. Now, I've been catching up with an awful lot of stuff that's very nostalgic to me on what they call Freeview, which requires no such Fire Stick. You know, I won't mention too many shows, but there's things like a show called Mitch, which has John Ford in it. There is Dick Turpin. There are comedies. You know, even going back as far as the Monkeys. They're even showing Wurzel Gummidge Down Under on some of the Freeview channels, and they keep me entertained. And they're only half an hour long. And if I fall asleep, I don't really care. So I'm happy with that. But when it tries to come to something like Black Mirror, where I want to be totally focused and awake to watch it, I'm busy all the way up to 9 o'clock, making sure my mum's got her tea, getting her ready for bed before my sister turns up, hoovering, steam cleaning, prepping dinners so that I don't have to do too much to cook the damn thing, toilet that she needs to go to, making the bed, washing, all of that sort of stuff, along with work. And it just knackers you out to the point where you just don't get that feeling of wanting to watch something. It has to be exceptional. And to be quite honest, since The Penguin was on, the only other show I've really watched has been The Last of Us, which I did actually get to watch at 9 o'clock on a Monday each week. But the rest of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I had exceptional problems watching TV. So yeah, Black Mirror is something that I am definitely going to watch. I'll try and watch a few episodes this week because I'd like to comment on it, being as you've mentioned it and you'd like to hear me talk about it. I love anthology, and it's also something that I don't have to watch episode 1 and then understand what happened in that to see what happened in episode 2. So I can take my time with it. So yeah, that's definitely going to happen. Hope that answers that question for now. To be continued. Number 2, can you tell us about some of your favourite point-and-click adventure games? Open question, can be a top 5 or favourite companies, etc. Oh, absolutely, of course. Point-and-click really started for me on the Commodore 64, really. As going far back as Leisure Suit Larry and the King's Quest series and Roger Wilco, was it? The Space Quest series, and it expanded into Indiana Jones, and I was able to play these because I had a disk drive. But I moved into the Amiga very, very quickly, and my Commodore 64 therefore went away nearly as quickly. I got my Amiga in 85 and I got rid of my Commodore 64 late 86, early 87. The Commodore 64 really didn't start to wane until 89, 90, I would have said. And probably even further, because it lasted till what, 94? So, you know, there's a huge chunk that I've caught up really through emulation. But it means that the point and click adventures expanded for me into the Amiga. And then by that point I was you know, playing Monkey Island 1 and 2. And those were great. Beneath a Steel Sky, I remember that. And then if I moved away from that particular style, which is basically an icon based at the bottom with a play area at the top, I started to play something more akin to text adventures, but was also point and click, and they were done by Mindscape, if I remember rightly, and they were called Deja Vu and Uninvited, and they were like a Mac-based interface, you know, Windows GUI, with a picture, and you clicked on it and it opened up a bigger magnifying type window where you could then take the item and drag and drop it into your inventory rather than say get. Do you see what I mean? And it had color, graphics, and sound effects. And most adventures and text-based adventures didn't have those. There are exceptions. Castle of Terror on the Commodore 64 is still one of my best favourite Commodore 64 text adventures, just for the atmosphere, really. So those were great. And in the PC, it exploded. Do you know what I mean? By this point, the SCUM interface was fully there, and I was playing my favourite of all the point-and-click adventures, which was Day of the Tentacle. I think most people know Day of the Tentacle is my favourite. Sam and Max were great, but Day of the Tentacle just tickled that funny bone that I really liked, and I thought the music was great. I had a MIDI card at this particular point. I had a CD player, so of course it was much more comprehensive in a story. It had speech all the way through it. Marvelous. And I still play that now. Such is the beauty of Day of the Tentacle from my point of view. Some people find it boring and horrible. Me, I get such a big nostalgic vibe when I play that. And you'll probably notice that I've stuck with possibly one or two companies here. We're talking about Sierra Online, or we're talking about LucasArts for the Indiana Jones. So we're not talking about huge differences. I think there's a couple of infograms I might have mentioned in there, French ones. So I think that answers your question in a comprehensive enough way. And then your last question is, do you still buy any physical magazines? And the sad case about that is I stopped about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Now, I was a big magazine buyer. I mean, I bought Zap and PCG and computer and video games all through the 8-bit era. I bought Amiga User and all, you know, Edge and all of that sort of stuff later on. And when I had my PC, oh my God, I bought PC Zone. Loved PC Zone. My God, what a great magazine that was. And it just about scratched the itch that I needed. And then it stopped. It became something where the internet basically took all of the pleasure away from it. PC Zone actually ended before the decline of the huge decline in magazines, should I say. And on occasions I've gone into a W.H. Smith with a little bit more money than I should have in my pocket, going on my walk, say at work, and I'll walk in and I'll see a retro magazine, you know, and I'll buy that. And distressed at the fact that it costs £6.99, or the specials that cost £12 or £13, which, to be quite honest, hey guys, think about this for a minute. Paperback books, which have got thousands and thousands of words in them, don't cost that sort of price. And I'm talking, you got to turn that into a hardback book to make me want to pay that sort of money. And I bulk at those. They really are the articles rewritten again, or reprinted again, should I say, with very little extra added to them, which again is what some people would call rip-off Britain. So yeah, the magazines sort of like stopped, and I started again when all of my friends started talking about a 5th size, or should I say an A5 size copy of Zap coming out. Now, I bought a folder which holds 12 issues. During buying Zap 64, the Amiga version came out after about issue 4 or 5 of the Commodore 64 Zap came out. So I bought a folder for that. All in my intentions to buy 12 issues of each, and then review and go, do I want to now continue? I stopped. When I got to the 12th issue of either, I thought, that's quite nice. 2 little bookends that show that I've got a little bit of a homage back to my old days of buying magazines, and I stopped. Okay, I never got the disc versions that had discs on them, because I didn't do any Kickstarter or Patreon or anything like that. All I got was the magazines, and the magazines sometimes took an age to come through. Ordering them, and 3 to 4 weeks later they'd arrive sometimes, right in time for the next one to come out and me start it all again. And I haven't even read the last month's one yet. So even the distribution wasn't working very well. But such is my love of 8-bit, I don't look at those as major criticisms at all. As long as I got them, I was happy. I love the reviews in them. I think they're very comprehensive, the reviews. There's one that I speak to in Discord and in Mainmeister's live streams, Paulie Moz, who does exceptional work, absolutely exceptional work. But I do tend to find that even his work is better in the books. He's done a book about Mastertronic games. His work is exceptional there, and far more suited than the monthly games that are coming out, which I know of via YouTube before the magazine even show it. So yeah, magazines are a mixed point for me at the moment, where I'd love to be able to go back, but in some ways I'm glad I don't, purely because I don't think I could afford it. These things weren't cheap either, though they were $3.99 each, and there was the postage. So, it wasn't exactly working for me. And there are so many ways you could actually download a PDF of it. But I like to read a magazine in front of me. So, yeah, I come away with mixed feelings about magazines. But I do long for the old days. You state best wishes to you and your mum. I thank you for that. Thank you so much, Carl Todd. Absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to now do my little half-hour check on my mum, and I'll be straight back. Cup of tea got for my mum, and we move on to the next one, which is Denny in the comments. And he's put, "Hiya, mate. Hope all is well your end. I've been full of flu since we both seen each other in Birmingham, though it has started to ease, so I could finally put a finish to the attic project. Though there's been a full declutter and sorting of my magazines and other stuff, I've collected over the years. There's still stuff to do, but it can wait till I move on to my next project, which is a full redesign of my room. Just noticed today, being Saturday, that the next volume of Super Space Theatre Volume 2 is Space 1999, Volume 1 being Thunderbirds. Now, I'm sure you bought Space 1999 from Network, yes, like I did, but there is an extra movie, Prisoners in Space, a brand new Super Space Theatre movie created exclusively for the box set, which combines the episodes of Dorzak and Devil's Planet into a single movie-length story presented in high definition. Also new, the return of Victor Bergman, a heartfelt short featurette in which Barry Morse reprises his iconic role as Professor Victor Bergman. This is coming out in August. Personally, I'm waiting on the UFO box set, though I'm going to buy all of the Super Space Theatre box sets as released. It's made me think a little bit there. Would I buy them? I think I saw something from the social media which kept coming from Jerry Anderson saying this was coming out, and I looked at it and I went, but there's hardly anything here to make me want it. But the Victor Bergman thing makes me want to. But then, like you say, there's the first one, Thunderbirds, which I'm not really that interested in. Believe it or not, Captain Scarlet was the time where I was having my most fun with Jerry Anderson, not the bigger puppet ones, although Stingray was definitely something I loved. And as well as Fireball XL5 when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Bit harder to watch these days, those black and white ones, not because they're in black and white, but because they really were at that target audience. Bit more, less grit in them, if you see what I mean, to keep my interest as an adult. So, do I want that Space 1999? Yeah. How much extra? What I'll probably do is I'll find out what the running time is, what the price is, and see if it's worth doing. It sounds very much like it could be. You continue. During my time in bed this week with the flu, I've started to get back into my comics I found. Sliders and the Dalek Chronicles were brilliant. I'd love to own the Gold Key. Yeah, Gold Key. I'd love to own the Gold Key Lost in Space Swiss Family Robinson releases, but the cost is astronomical, isn't it just? Hopefully an omnibus is on the way sometime. Gold Key. I don't know who owns Gold Key's portfolio anymore. I'd have to go to Omar of Near Mint Condition to ask him that. I've never really looked. I remember buying... I've got a couple of Gold Keys, but they've been the Star Trek ones, the first, the original series Gold Keys, which have been reprinted. And I don't know if I think they did the Bionic Man, and they did the Bionic Woman. I think they did Planet of the Apes as well for a time, but Marvel got the license to that when I really was reading comics. You continue, because it goes down a little bit here. I have to promote another TV series this week called Paradise on Disney+. Literally, don't take anything on face value. What turns out to be a run-of-the-mill political thriller throws a massive twist. Curveball right at the end of episode 1. You will absolutely love it, as not all is what it seems. Can't recommend this enough. I wish I could, spend that time watching these things. I'll get round to it, but I've got so much to do now. It's unbelievable. So you continue, not 100% on this, but I believe the majority of the Star Wars series have been cancelled, except Ashoka. Also, I don't think those streaming platforms are performing how they like. Add to that, some major film companies regret pulling out of physical media sector. Is this the point where physical media becomes their revenue stream again? Well, I hope so. It's been actually a debate for 3 years now. mostly hotting up when Disney turned around and said, we've done a collaboration with Sony to bring out physical media again. But we're going to do it in a short way and see how sales go. And from that moment on, they only did steelbooks. They all cost about 60 quid. And they're not selling that well. And I think it's because they don't go down the line of the younger brother, I only want the content in a plastic case type route. I think if they look at their back catalogue and start releasing those like that, they will get a bigger revenue in and it will fund those other projects. That's just my opinion. But I've always said this. I think the old method of views on the day is the wrong way to go to show success. I believe that the majority of the fans are buying the physical media, and the sales, therefore, coupled with who watched it, should be used maybe as a yardstick. So is this the point where physical media becomes the revenue stream again? The 3 noticeable physical releases I've had come this week are Slade in Flame, The Fog, and yes, I gave in the Sweeney 1.333.1 edition. That's, by the way, for free standard box edition, not widescreen for our modern TVs. Just hope Series 4 has the 2 films on there as extras. Possibly will. I did notice that Season 2 of The Sweeney is booked for end of July. The first one is out. It's $49.99. That's 100 quid for both of them. I think that's quite expensive. But it is Blu-ray. They've given you 2 options to buy it for free. Standard or widescreen in the boxes, which I think is a great move. You can choose. Also the audio, you can choose mono or new 5.1. So yeah, there's lots of options there for $49.99. I suppose you could say it's good value for money. So question for this week, what TV series from either the 70s or 80s would you like to see again which hasn't been shown since? My choice would be Owen Allen's Swiss Family Robinson from 1975. Oh God. Well, I think we all know that Sapphire and Steel, I think, would make a fantastic show in 2025, especially how it ended, where they're trapped in a diner, travelling all of time itself until they die. Magnificent. If you can get out of that conundrum and create that series again, that would be brilliant. Unfortunately, David McCallum has gone from us now, and Joanna Lumley is more a documentary type person, and is getting on in her years. So it might be right for a remaster, a reimagination of Sapphire and Steel. That would work, I think. Let me think. Well, I'd like Space 1999 and the Hulk back. We had a chat about this on the Friday that I saw you. I definitely agree that the Hulk, done in the old traditional way, would work still in the new modern way, because they got away with it in the 70s. There's no reason why you couldn't get away with it in 2025. There's so much CGI going on. You don't need that. Do a cartoon if you want. So I think old effects are still there that would work. In the 80s, I see things like Quantum Leap and Sliders doing well in 2025. And one of the shows that I loved, probably more because of the music than I did anything else, is Street Hawk, which wouldn't probably work in 2025, just like Knight Rider didn't when they tried to do it in the late 90s, early 2000s. But I'd still like to see it. You know, just like I'd like to see a puppet show done now. You know, like do Captain Scarlet with puppets, but with the technology that we've got now. Don't do it CGI. We've had that. Don't need it. Um, just think it'd be quite good. Be something different. I'll say that. Hopefully catch up next week. Time for another chat. Pass on my best to your mother. My pleasure, my friend. And I don't know if you've noticed, but please go to your Steam library. There is a game there that I've got for you. Something that I thought might help you when you were sick. I have noticed that you haven't accepted the gift yet. Please do so. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it passes by many hours for you. Something very cheap, very cheerful, and small. So nothing to worry your head over there. Moving to Steve's gaming. Salute, by the way, to Denny. And Steve says, hi, Dell. Excellent blog as always. I hope your week was a decent one and things aren't getting too stressful. My week has been okay. I'm still waiting for the Sword of Damocles to drop. But no point in worrying about that until it happens. As for gaming, I've not been playing much at all, and I can't remember the last really good I enjoyed a lot in. Anyway, on to the questions. Here we go. Question 1. What is your favourite takeaway treat? Is it a pizza, kebab, fish and chips, or something different? I have to say pizza's definitely up there. I do sort of 3 sort of takeaways, and that is pizza, sausage and chips, because I don't eat fish and chips, and going to a burger place. And I don't mean McDonald's, I mean some of the flame grilled type places that you can get a burger from, a deluxe burger of a sort with all sorts of different things inside it. I do like those. I don't do them very often though. Can't leave my mum now, so it's one of those things. Question 2. What is your favourite video game where you only get one life? All the best, my friend, and give my love to your mum. And I definitely will. Thank you so much. One life. One life and you're dead. I mean, even Commando is 3 lives and you're dead or more. Depending on how you set it up in options. As is Bubble Bobble and all of those arcade games, not one life. And then there are the 1 lives where you've got a shield system, so basically you can keep replenishing it and you're still there. I think that's probably more along the line of what a 1 life game is. And from that point of view, I'd say Elite. I loved Elite. Trading, the going between space stations, and then you could die and you'd have to start again or open up a save game. That was great. That's definitely 1 life. I think most of the role-playing games were 1 life. I remember playing Dungeon Master, and when I died, I'd start back at the beginning. And of course, the Ultima series were also like that. But you can also continue. So they're lesser. But I think that answers your question to an extent. So I'm going to say salute, and my special message to you, which is fucking get on with it, you bastard. You're taking too long getting your videos out. You know, we want them now. And I hope that fills you with joy and happiness like it does every week for me. And we get to Ian Hill, the Ramblings, who, as you know, I do a chat with on Wednesday. Love getting all my messages from all these people, but it's great that I get also some feedback from people that I speak to for 4 or so hours during the week. And Ian has put, hi Dal boy, hope you and your mum are okay. Glad we did the Wednesday live stream, though I wasn't feeling too great. To be honest, the cellulitis is still affecting me, and despite completing the antibiotics, I still don't feel right. Today, Friday, the nurse came to change the bandages, and at one point the pain was so sharp, I really screamed out. I'm just hoping things will improve and I can feel better. And I can imagine what it's like. Bandages dry, and they embed themselves with the blood and the that's on your legs, and the knitting of skin. It almost like it tries to drag the cloth in with you, and when you pull it away, it's like pulling away dried tissue, and it leaves you very, very sore. So I totally can sort of like feel the way on how you must be going through with that. I did enjoy my 65th birthday. I had a takeaway with my son, which my son bought for me. I also did start to watch some films. The highlight was The War of the Worlds, 1953, such a classic sci-fi film. These sci-fi films of the 50s are great, often filmed with the Cold War paranoia of the time and shadow of nuclear destruction. I think it would be interesting to see a Victorian setting in the War of the Worlds, though. I don't think they would do another remake. Incidentally, I was a big fan of the TV series. I have both the seasons on DVD. So, question this week is, are there any films that you can think of which would be set in another era and can be in the past or the future? All the best, wishing you a reet grand time. A reet grand time. Yeah, what an interesting question. I think there's a number of shows that we can do here. Some of them have already been done, though, so that's quite difficult. But let me think. We've mentioned Space 1999, and you'd think to yourself, well, what else could you do with that? But think about this for a moment. We've got no base on the moon. What if the moon actually went away from us at a time where we are planning to do bigger journeys into space, but just before it happens, the moon is burst out of orbit? Just think what a dystopian world we would live on, how we would live, knowing our moon is now gone. Would we survive it even? Yeah, so I mean, Space 1999 I think comes to mind. So that would be a Space 1999 with no moon base alpha, is what I'm trying to say. I wonder if doing a puppetry show like Captain Scarlet would work in World War One. It's set in the future, set in a time where we are trying to destroy an alien presence. What would it be like if we tried to destroy the alien premise in Victorian era or World War One? That'd be interesting. I'd like that. And of course, I always think of the future as being a thing about overcrowding, the pill, all of that sort of stuff. How about my cousin sort of like doing something like Dear John in the future? You know, Dear John was a comedy show where it was not an old age pensioner, a person who works at a school who's like a headmaster, so in his late 40s, early 50s, wanting to date again, but can't because dating is now done so differently. You know, it's all test tube babies. If you want to have kids, it's all about sniffer dogs at airports and all that sort of stuff. What would it be like in the day in the life of somebody who lives Dear John in, say, 2045, 20 years from now? What would it be like? I mean, most people will know how to use computers at that point, so that works. So I think that'll be good for my answer, and thanks very much, Ian, for your question, and I do wish you the very best, and thanks very much for all of your support. It really has made my day. And we get to the last comment, and it's from a person who I've never really met before, and it's called the Movie Dome UK. And I kept it because I don't delete really comments unless they're derogatory, and I've had to remove very, very few of those. And there was nothing in here that is there to upset anyone, really. It basically says, and this is the first time coming from the person. It says, another absolutely thrilling blog, Del Boy. I'm looking forward to catching you tonight on Pete's stream with Andy and Nige, if you know what I mean. No, I don't. Don't know what you mean. But you continue. It's been a while since you were on Pete's channel, and seeing the gang back together again means friendship after all, especially with the good the good advice Pete gives you, which you can speak about, which you spoke about on an Ian's stream recently. Wee Bob will be there tonight also, as he has had a blast with Scott's stream. So, again, some old friends there mentioned. I don't remember half of the conversations you're mentioning there, but as my answer states, and I'll read out my answer to you, I put, you never know what the future holds. I doubt I will be on a panel soon, but life is short and the future unknown. But we're all grown-ups, so keep watching. Because that's how I look at it. I haven't been on a Pete stream for a while. I know he's back. I haven't been on a Scott's channel. I was only ever on a couple ever with him. Like I say, I can't talk about Pete. He hasn't invited me. And what we have to remember is that you have to be invited. You don't invite yourself. And it might well be that he thinks that my knowledge of films is less than the people that he's asking, and I can't fault that either. So, to be quite honest, there's nothing in here to hurt me or make me think negative terms. I just look at it and go, hey, you never know what the future is. I haven't done anything nasty to any of these people, done anything wrong. We don't talk at all anymore. But that doesn't mean my door's not open. I didn't do the blocking, so all I can say is, hey, it really would be good, put all that crap behind us, get on with some things. And that's the end, I think. No, I've got a couple more. I do apologise. So I'll be back in a moment.
And I'm back, and I'm sorry about all these interruptions. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning, but my mum's brother, that living a place called Long Itchington, it's about 30-40 minutes away from here, have turned up, and they've only got a certain amount of time, and they've just turned up, and they brought some photographs of my mum when she was at school, just see what her memory would be like. So it'd be very interesting to know from my sister later on how that's going on. But I wanted to say hello and tell them what was going on and show my face and all of that sort of stuff. So that's why I'm sort of like going back and forth. But anyway, I'll try and keep going on. And just to end, I think the last one was from the movie Dome. Absolutely. Anything can happen in the future. No sour grapes or anything from me. It's very difficult for me to appear on panel chats anyway, in regards to the fact that I'm looking after my mother, and most of these things start off at 8 o'clock, and that's the sort of time where I'm prepping my mum to go to bed. So, you know, I'm sure these chat panels and everything are just as entertaining as anybody, and if anybody's missing me, you know, I might be invited on. You never know. And if I'm not, I don't feel bad about it. I know my worth, which Ian recognises instantly, and I'm on there, and they all know sort of like my shortcomings and you know, and my knowledge when it comes to TV, Doctor Who, films. I am sort of like very early on up to the sort of like late 90s, early 2000s when it comes to sharpness of remembrance.
and less about what's going on right now, and from about 2002 on, I would say, because those are the periods of my life where I had no money, couldn't buy physical media anymore. I had trouble even streaming stuff, in regards to having Sky or cable and wireless or any of those. So, they fill in the blanks for me there, and I fill them in with the older stuff from what I know. So, brilliant. Salute, my friend. Hope you enjoyed watching. We move to Martroid, who's put, "You certainly full of vim and vigour this week, Del," which is great to see. "I'm so glad you enjoyed my most recent gaming selection for you." I absolutely did. "Can't wait for the next episode. Also, yes, it was bad luck what happened to Chronologically Gaming's PC, but kind of good for me because I finally caught up and I'm ready for the return now. Aren't we all? It's been about a week and a half now. I haven't got to that section of my blog yet. But it is something that I tune in every week to. I find it absolutely fantastic. I look at some of the stuff and the years it came out and go, wow, I remember that time as well. And we are actually at Christmas 1982. And although it is mostly American flavoured, with hints of Japan, it does have some UK stuff in there, but I don't think the feel of UK is in Chronologically Gaming. Do you know what I mean? Because it's all about the crash and all of this sort of stuff. And from our point of view, the crash could have occurred. Didn't have to occur. We were happy as Larry with our tapes and loading and Spectrums and Commodore 64s. And I don't think that emphasis comes across a lot. But it's called Chronologically Gaming. And basically, I hope that maybe some of that boon of the UK comes across, just like we consider Britpop was a section in music. Do you see what I mean? Which may not have been that popular in the States, but it was a huge thing here. You know what I mean? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, who knows. Thank you very much, my friend. Hope to speak to you again soon and get some more of those Friends videos out. Next one is Pug War. He's actually put, "Love hearing what you've been up to and always enjoy you and Mr. Hill." Thank you so much for joining in, and please still keep support Ian Hill. Ian Hill's, what a character is what I want to say. I mean, age should not be a thing to to take away from somebody in regards to something like YouTube. Right, it's bad enough that my mother doesn't know the technology, and in a bad place at the moment with memory and all that sort of stuff. This is a guy that isn't technically aware, but has a heck of a lot of knowledge in regards to TV, books, music, all of that sort of stuff, and therefore we should be championing these people to tell us, what was it like? Tell me more. I'd love to know more from Ian. I tell you what. I'll probably have a word with him, but he is 10 years back from me. So when I think about the 1960s, 1960 to 69, I know what I know, which is when I had physical media buying in the 80s, there was stuff that was coming out from the 60s, and I'd be able to catch up with books. He was there. Living it. I want that feeling across, and year by year, what did you watch at the cinema in 64? Tell me, what was that experience like? How much did you pay? What was a shilling? You know what I mean? All of that sort of stuff before decimalisation. All of that. Love it. Would love that. Anyway, thank you very much, and I hope you continue to watch. And we're getting down to Colin Jones, aka Ponder, my friend, who has got a great channel, does his own blog. Oh my God, his high score kerfuffles that he's doing. I can watch him for that whole hour and just be engrossed going, oh, please get past that level, please. I'm like this all the time, right? He's put to me, "Glad to hear last week has been more settled, and actually glad to hear that your mum recognises when she's too tired for activity. Sending my regards as always." Yeah. I followed you on Odyssey. Oh, thank you. And see, you have 11 uploads. I was right, about 10 or 11 I've done at the time of typing, but no content visible. I hope it lets you upload your longer videos. That's the hope. What I'm doing is I'm uploading at the moment the blogs. So I've got the very first one, and I've got the next, up to number 11. Each one doesn't take too long to upload, but it does then transcode to their own format. But you have to fill in the blanks for every single bit with the text, and I copy and paste the text that was in with the YouTube. And this is because autosync doesn't work. So I can upload about 5 in an hour. And what I tend to do is, if I'm not too tired at night and it's sort of like 10 o'clock and I'm not ready to go to bed, I'll go to Odyssey and I'll go, do you know what? I'll upload another couple. It's just one less job to do. And when I get a full year, I'll then say it's there. But there's nothing really to watch for you, Colin, because you can do that with YouTube now. You could basically open up my channel, go to the very last email, very last video in the list, because it goes from newest to oldest, and you can watch those 11. There's nothing new there. It purely is going to be for that backup that we talked about. And I thank you so much that you're following me, and of course maybe I'll get more followers because of people that just go to Odyssey and don't go to YouTube. That's the intent. So thank you so much, and yeah, let's hope that it continues to let me upload as my blogs got longer, and they did get longer, didn't they? Jesus. Okay. I think the second half of the last Doctor Who was not the original plan and was all filmed quite late. The very end was. I think purely to get people talking. It's a publicity stunt to assure the show's future. Nothing more. I just hope that they dump Disney and bring it back in-house with a lower budget and better scripts. Yeah, totally agree. If I didn't get that across, sorry. I know it's a publicity stunt. Obviously, it doesn't say introducing Billy Piper as the Doctor. We know that Russell T Davies' position is not known now, even though Disney have gone, because the BBC can turn around and say we want you or not. The Billy Piper thing is a bookend, because that's the link to the Christopher Eccleston and the very first show that Russell T Davies did of bringing the Doctor back. What else did you put? It's a publicity stunt, yeah. They dumped Disney, which they're doing. The regeneration energy and all of that sort of stuff, it's been speculated that Rose basically looked into the TARDIS and took over and had TARDIS energy in her at the end of the Christopher Eccleston period, and she shouldn't have been able to have done that, and that the TARDIS has brought back a memory, and that's why you see Billy Piper's face. We know about regenerative energy. If you remember, Romana went through 5 different changes of look in the space of 5 minutes during, I think was it the Key to Time? No, it was just after the Key to Time. That was right. The season after the Key to Time. Finally settling on a look that was a previous character, Princess, forgotten her name now. Anyway, she was in it, and obviously Tom Baker married her that same year, 1977, something like that. But what I'm trying to get at here is that we all know that this regenerative energy that the Doctor has seems to be with him. When David Tennant took over, he grew his hand back with it, and that hand was a later story part as well. So he's going through a face change. You don't know where the next series is going to go. The regenerative energy could then cover that face again, and then suddenly you get another Doctor, and you go, "Ooh, what the hell?" I'm like you. Give it a year, maybe more. I don't like to say that as a Doctor Who fan. I know what it's like having 8-year gaps and 15-year gaps of Doctor Who, depending on whether you discard the movie or not with Paul McGann. We don't need that. What we do need is the Doctor to be around, and we need it to be in a format that everybody loves. And I think the majority of that was that Christopher Eccleston season that came back. I mean, it was such a strong performance that it carried it for a good 6 or 7 years. Broke into America. America suddenly fell in love with it. But I tell you what, how can you cosplay the latest role of the Doctor? He was in a different bloody suit every episode, apart from the fact that I suppose you could turn around and say, I tell you what, I'll cosplay him in the very last episode, which means you're wearing a dress. Great. Nothing wrong with that. You know. But there you go. That's another little thing. It took away from cosplayers, I think, a little bit, not having a singular costume all the way through it. Yeah, so you said basically it wasn't the original plan. No, it wasn't. And I think I've mentioned it before. You know, Suji Gatwa is basically, you can't keep a character actor like that around waiting to see whether a series is going to come back or not. So that was another reason for filming a show where he had to eventually turn around and say, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving. Can't keep up with that. So I understand that. So you continue. Nicky is an exceptional actor, and this is why he left Who. With an uncertain restart date, he can't afford to himself into the role, which is what I've just said. Hidden line removal, got you now. That's pretty much what I was talking about, yes. I'm humbled by your compliments. No, don't be humbled. I speak the truth, how I see it. This is my blog, this is my diary, it's how I would have written it in my diary. It's a verbal version of me reading it out. Nothing else other than that. If something was bad, I'd mention it, or just turn around and say I'd do it differently, like this. If it's spot on, great. If it's exceptional, mention it. Love it, matey. Keep bringing that stuff out. Love it. I fully understand your time issue, so don't feel bad on my behalf. Yeah, I still do, though. I think that's just in my characteristic that as much as I want to be able to leave comments on everywhere, I'm doing it in bits and bobs, you know, in between washing up, drying up, getting the washing done, getting the drying done, in the washing machine, should I say, for that. Making the beds, ironing, all that sort of stuff. I'm in between, and sometimes I'll watch something and then go to the next video and forget to go back to leave a comment, and it's a mental state at the moment. So please don't feel bad if I haven't. My question: what are your thoughts on the new Switch 2 and prices Nintendo are demanding from their customers? I'm neutral on this for now, but would like to hear what you think. Isn't it amazing that you talk about that? Now, this was something that I was going to bring up later on, but I might as well. No, I'll do it in a little bit because there's a section where I need to do this, and it does make more sense. So listen out, my friend Colin. Your answers are going to be all coming after the comment section and what I've watched on YouTube. It makes more sense there. Stay peeled. Thank you very much, salute, sir. And please, if you haven't subscribed to him, please do so. If you haven't subscribed and you don't agree with subscribing just because someone says, just go and have a little look. Have a look at his channel. Maybe there's a like or two that you might actually put to something. You never know. They all help us as creators. We're moving forward now to Robert's Retro Gaming, or as I call him, Canadian royalty, Atari King. All sorts of superfluous comments that I'd like to make. He's put, hey Dell, it seems your week off was all right. That's nice to hear. The whole YouTube system has tremendous flaws, especially for little people. It's a shame, as it doesn't seem like it would be so hard to build some tools to expose key information and some form of automated support. Yeah, this is where I was talking about Something that's good that can ultimately be used to make you feel bad. Likes, dislikes, word removal from stuff, comments taken away or down because something's going on in the world and one word is taken out of context, all that sort of shit. It's terrible. I will perhaps, you continue, look at Odyssey, but I have north of 1,600, yeah, you bastard, 1,600 videos. Makes my bit. He started later than me, and I've done 400 and... Well, let's have a look. 457 I've done 1,600 he's done. I don't know whether he's ever done, though, a 2.5 hour one session or a 4-hour live stream. Do that as well as your 10-15 minute game bits. But I'm nitpicking now. I've got north of 1,600 videos. I do have local backups of all of them. Manual upload for me is not feasible, or at least I can't see doing that, and that's what I'm saying. It's now a uphill struggle. 457 is hard enough. 1,600 shit. But it does have an auto sync. It's supposed to work for some and not others. I don't know what the criteria of that is. They didn't explain it to me. I emailed them 5-6 times, never got an answer that told me, other than when I tried to attempt it and I had to wait a day, it then turned around ultimately and said, we can't auto sync your stuff. And you don't know until you try. So all I can say is no harm, no foul, to create an account and try, and if it doesn't, you just go, stuff you then. Know what I mean? You continue. Big Trouble in Little China is such a great movie. I remember watching it in the theatre when it came out and loving it then. I've seen it a few more times over the years. Another example for me is Brazil. Both films, fantastic. The only bad side with Big Trouble in Little China is that I did watch it about a year or so ago with friends, and I came away that day not liking it, and it was probably for the first time. I loved it all the other times, and I mostly watched it by myself, apart from the very first time when I went to the theatre and I saw it with friends, like I always did. We used to go every Friday to see new films, and it was one of those films that I saw. I don't know what happened that day. Maybe it was because there was so much... I don't know. The mood seemed negative, and I don't mean that came from anybody in particular. What we were watching it with, it was more about the mood of the week. Yeah, is that how I'm trying to explain it? Yeah, things were going on in all of our lives that when we watched it, where you're supposed to be neutral watching a film, that negativity creeps in, and you therefore, no matter how, if you were feeling so down, it didn't matter how, the funniest film would not raise you to the point of how it was when you first watched that film. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get across. I think that's the best way to explain it. Question: are there other cult classics you love? Are there any that were largely forgotten that you think should be cult classics? Oh, there's so many cult classics that I love. You'll hear Denny and I talk about the Doug McClure films, The Land That Time Forgot, at the center of the earth, Warlords of Atlantis. Then there are things like Battle Beyond the Stars, which were Roger Corman films. Not of This Earth, another Roger Corman film. Man with X-Ray Eyes, another cult classic. Man who can see through things and then actually saw the center of the universe. The Incredible Shrinking Man, Attack of the 80-Foot Woman. Oh, B-movie, all cults that, could have been made as AAA films and could be done now as AAA films. That's what I mean. There's so many. It's very difficult for me to name one. Buckaroo Banzai, across the 9th dimension. There you are. One that should have got better ratings than it did Robinson Crusoe on Mars or Enemy Mine. Two great films, sort of similar to each other, which I think could have done better and would do well now. And you put then after this, my friend Dell, don't be jealous of my buddy Steve. You are also great. No, do you know what it is with jealousy? Jealousy is something that sort of floods through your body for an instant, right? Or it fills you for about 5 or 30 minutes or whatever it is, and then it goes away because you do other things, and it doesn't, and it therefore doesn't detract from you anymore. But you know how it is where YouTube is your place of choice to see stuff, and then when you're watching your friends and you hear the mention of another channel or somebody else's channel or another channel like that, and you're going, why doesn't my channel get mentioned very often? But then I look at my output and I go, well, why should anybody mention it? What have I done? Why am I royalty? What makes me sit on the top of the pot of things? These people that are being mentioned for a reason, and it could be they're just playing the same game as the one that they played, and they remember seeing it. You know, I think it only really crops its head up when I see something that I've done, you know, like if I've done my history of Pac-Man or my history of playing Elite or whatever it is, and then when somebody else does their own version of Elite, they'll mention a couple of people's channels and mine won't be mentioned, and yet I did a comprehensive research on it. Do you know what I mean? And made it as entertaining and as thought-provoking as you possibly can, and yet a lesser one in my eyes got mentioned. Do you know what I mean? It's not a jealousy thing really from a certain point of view. It's a fleeting sour grapes thing that doesn't control my life one bit. I've got my mother's health to look at, so it doesn't really bother me at all. Lots of interesting discussions this week, and I hope there will be this week as well. Thank you very much, Robert. All the best to you, Del Mom, Del Sis, Del Brother-in-Law, Del Niece and Del Nephew. Del Nephew, Alex, Del Niece, Freya, Del Brother-in-Law, Paul, Del Sis, Tracy, Del Mum, Valerie. Thank you very much. Absolutely wonderful. That's cheered me up no end. That's made me smile. This is what I like about the comments. They all make me smile, but that one, thank you so much. I feel honoured to know you, Rob. Thank you so much. And we got to the last one. Okay, and this comes from. I've got a story behind this. Runny Plays. Right? Never heard of Runny Plays. I was going, what the hell is that all about? And it says, hello, Del Boy. I'm the bro of Mark, 20th Century Gaming. Love the variety on your channel, Atari. See you around. Thank you so much. I put, oh, wow, this is my answer to him. And hi, love Mark's channel, and he suggests games for me to play. In fact, he's the next one to suggest a game for me this week, and he is. Just checked, and I've subbed to your channel, which I did. Hope you enjoy yourself here. Excelsior. Yeah, I looked at his channel. My God, he's got a gaming channel. He's doing... the thing I like about his stuff, and I'll mention it later on because I'm bringing it in, is that he does do a lot of modern stuff, but he talks so lovely about the 8-bit era. He was playing... in one of his videos, he did Bubble Bobble for Friends, right? It's a game. It's Bubble Bobble 4. But it's called For Friends, it's got in the title, right? It was in the Nintendo sale. I bought it about 2 weeks ago. It was just at the beginning of the sale. Anyway, he did a review of it, and he kept talking about, and you get the arcade version of Bubble Bobble, and I used to play this with my brother, and we used to play it. This arcade game stood up against games like Commando and Green Beret and all of this sort of stuff, and then although it's cutesy, it's great. And I remember me and my brother playing on the Commodore 64. I mean, it's great. This is a guy who brings in that nostalgia element, but talks solely about this version, whether you should buy it. And just like him, I was just agreeing with him all the time. They were playing the music to Bubble Bobble in the background of this, and it was a modernized version of it. And he was going, listen to that nostalgia in that tune. Oh my God, love that tune. And I was listening to it, right? And I was going, yeah, this is what brings you back, right? Maybe modern, but it's got a modern version of the tune, but the tune is basically you couldn't not distinguish it from the original. It was absolutely fantastic. That's what I love about YouTube. And anyway, that's the comments. Hope you enjoyed that. That's absolutely fantastic, because now we get on to the next bit. I'm just going to check on my mum quickly, and we'll get through this. Won't be too far in the future. And we get to the next section, which is watched on YouTube. And just so if you want to know what's been going on in between, my sister has to get away to look after her own family. I knew that I had to get to Sainsbury's to get a loaf of bread so that we've got toast and so forth in the morning, and we haven't got enough slices. And they shut at 4 o'clock. I can't leave my mother when my sister is gone, which means I had 45 minutes. I won't get this section done in 45 minutes. So you pause the video, go out, get a Sainsbury's, get all that stuff, come back, sit, start recording again. My sister, when she's gone, I can pause the video and keep going and checking my mum if I don't get it in the 45 minutes. That's the reason why all the pause is going on. But I digress. Watched on YouTube. Now, you know this section is an area of what I always watch, okay? That are not like friends or personal friends of mine or people that I've personally met, but they've come up in my alert and therefore are new, and they might not have appeared in your alert. So there are 4 that I always watch, which is This Week in Retro, Tech Moan, Gadget Show, and Chronologically Gaming. And it's been a bit inconsistent just recently because a couple of those have had a few problems or have not been making content just recently. But all but Chronologically Gaming now have done so. So it's a bit more fuller. So This Week in Retro, as most people will know, is part of sort of like the Retro Man Cave, or Neil, as we've known him for all the years, and is now going on sort of semi without him at the moment because he's doing family things. They did their free subjects like they always do, and they did mystery videos recovered, Red 5 standing by, and public displays of affection. I tended to find that the subjects are a little bit distant to what I normally watch, but the mystery videos recovered and the Red 5 standing by, I watched and was quite entertained by. And it's always a good watch anyway. There is always the community side of things. It's just a good watch, especially if you like nostalgic or things in the past. It's absolutely great being looked at from a now perspective. Then we got Tech Moan, and Tech Moan did a huge video this week where he's bought and constructed a prefabricated extension. So it's not actually an extension to his house, it's prefabricated. And he's moved his office into there to do his YouTube stuff, and he wanted to show off what it sort of like looked like. And so he did a video called My Past Projector Missteps and New Start. So part of his house, which is too small, was going to be a home cinema room, and all of the problems that he had with it. He's now started to look at it again because of his new office, and he's started to look at things slightly differently. So he's looked at some of the old tech and got it out and see whether he could use it again now that he's got this new fabricated place to work under, and you know the problems that are still there. So he bought this projector. It was a gorgeous looking not projector, but the actual where you project onto the screen, and it was an automatic one. So it was a great big massive metal plank, And when you press the button, the projector, the screen came up to about just over 6 foot. But just like anything, if something can look impressive, doesn't necessarily fit the bill. So in this one instance, and I do urge you to go and watch the rest of it, it's not sturdy when it's 6 foot tall. The tautness that you would get from something that hung down from the ceiling, where gravity would pull it straight, doesn't work when it's going up. So of course it moves, it wobbles, and anything that you put on a projector, you will see the wrinkles and all that sort of stuff. The text will be sort of like warped at the bottom, so it doesn't work. So he started to show all of these missteps that you could make yourself, and don't do the same mistakes that he did. And he talked about other types of things like the projectors themselves, 4K and newer equipment that's out there and all that sort of stuff. Absolutely brilliant. Techmoan is definitely a guy that I watch, and I look forward to his videos all the time. And the Gadget Show, although not totally back, has started to put some of their budget versus premium videos out. So they did a budget versus premium of which tires are best, so budget or expensive. An Amos Tower fan versus a Philips fan. You know those big tower fans that blow in all sorts of directions, but they're in a big tower with a remote control. £65 or £105 budget drill test. So budget or expensive drill test. Quite good. And then one that I was interested in, because I've actually got the actual thing that's in this one. Spot cleaner showdown. So there was a cheap one and there was the Vax one, which is the one that I've got. Interesting result, because when you're looking at budget versus expensive, it's what do you get for your money? So is it always good to go the expensive route, even if it does a better job? That's the whole point of it. So it's quite interesting to watch that. And of course, chronologically gaming, his PC, it needs to be replaced, rebuilt. So we're waiting on that, and I'm pretty sure it'll only be maybe another week, and we'll have that back. So what else did I watch? Well, there was a Century 21 film, which I like watching the Century 21 film stuff on YouTube, because it's the documentaries that go behind my most beloved TV shows when I was a child, like Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Space 1999. So they actually showed Jerry and Sylvia Anderson remembers Stingray. And Stingray was probably my first one that I really, really got interested into. It was like a whole underwater experience for me. It was in colour, but I didn't see it in colour at the time because I only had a black and white TV, because we rented ours from multi-broadcast or Rumbelows, can't quite remember which one. I think it was multi-broadcast. And it was later on that I watched the colour ones. And my God, I remember when it was in colour, how rich it was. My God, it was great. Sorry, so that was my mum's brother saying goodbye, so I had to go and shut the door. Stingray, yeah, so it was something that I saw in colour later on, and that's when we got a colour TV. And the memories of that came flooding back, and it was great to hear about how all that started in regards to Century 21 was actually, which was called APB Films at the time, was being bought by Lou Grade. So another little snippet of information that was in there. Then I went to another channel which was called Mixed Signals, and it was the story behind the THX Deep Note. Now, I don't know, I saw the THX Deep Note at the cinema first, and then it became a stay point for when I had Laserdiscs. So when I put my Laserdisc in, this big THX symbol would come on, and it would play this note. It used to start off low and go like this, and it filled your whole room with sound, especially if you had an early surround sound amp system. What I didn't know is that beginning note that you hear, and it goes to a crescendo at the end, is all mixed signals that are going through your DAC, and it then turns into a crescendo of a note at the end. Learned so much by just watching that video. I didn't realize that at the time. Absolutely fantastic. Then I watched something called Laden Starfish. These are the channels that I watched.
And their channel, their video that I watched was 40 games with brutal learning curves. Now, I don't watch an awful lot of these videos, but when something comes to mind, I go, do you know what? Yeah, let's see what the 40 games are that that this person's talking about here, because I've seen some brutal learning curves through my life. You know, whether it be Elite Dangerous, you know, or Eve Online, or role-playing games, or microprose manuals with TFX and all of those sort of stuff, and Super Huey and all of those sort of helicopter type games with manuals that tell you how to bloody switch the thing on and fly and turn the rotors around, let alone take off. So yeah, that was interesting, and it didn't really go that far for me. It was all modern stuff rather than all of the old stuff that was equally had brutally learning curves. Could have gone a bit further. Could do a part 2, I would have said, to that one. Then I talked about this before. Mark of 20th Century Gaming has got a brother called Runny Plays. So I went to his channel, and these are the ones I watched. So I watched his video on The Precinct, Mario Wonderland, Bubble Bobble for Friends, and a few various other little ones that were both old and new. And he's coming out with videos like every day or so, and they're all significantly different to each other, and it's just nice to hear his voice having a little laugh while he's trying to play gameplay on stuff and reminiscing over those games. I definitely recommend watching, out of all of these, Runny Plays. Absolutely marvellous. Thank you so much. His content was great. And then we get back to Colin's question, because the next one I saw was Tronics Fix, and we've mentioned him before. He does all those soldering and repairs and stuff. He did a Nintendo Switch 2 teardown full disassembly, including the Joy-Cons. Now, I mention it here because, as most people know, and I haven't brought it up, the Nintendo Switch 2 got released this week. Yes, it came out on Thursday. In fact, if you went to a store at 2 minutes past 12 Thursday morning, so that's Wednesday night, you know, most of us, you know, because it would still be night time, we would be in bed asleep, you could pick up your Nintendo and you could start playing on that system. And it was a system that I had no intention of getting. In fact, on that Wednesday when I was talking to Ian, somebody was saying, am I looking forward to it? I turned around and said, I haven't even ordered it. My life situation is different now. But something happened on Thursday. I looked at my Switch, and I've got 2 of them, right? I've got a jailbroke one, and I've got the original one that I first bought. And I thought to myself, which one would I get rid of? So the one that's jailbroke is not an OLED. It's just the exact same model I've got, but it's a coloured one. It's not the grey one that I bought when I first bought it. Day one, when it came out. The other thing was about it is, this launch is actually the first launch of a console, I think, if I'm right in saying, outside of COVID. Because the Xbox One, Xbox, X, is it? Yeah, Xbox X came out COVID. PlayStation 5, COVID. So if you're looking at the big hitters, the next one's Nintendo. The Switch was out before COVID, so this is after COVID, and it's the first console. So it is quite a big launch. Didn't think of it from that perspective. But the other thing is I've got 2 Switches. Why? I remember why I bought the second one. I wanted one that I wanted to keep the same, and one that I could jailbreak and do whatever I want with it, not put it on the internet. And I bought it for, I think it was 210 quid at the time. And I was talking to my next door neighbour on Thursday in the afternoon in the garden, because I was in the garden just doing some stuff while the rain was off. And they said they hadn't got a Switch, and they wanted to buy a Switch 2, but they couldn't afford it. Did they know where they could get a cheap Switch from? And I thought to myself, hang on a minute, there's an opportunity here. I could get a Switch 2. It's
most people were thinking it was out of stock, but it was far from out of stock. And I thought to myself, ooh. So I happened to mention that I've got a jailbroke one. In other words, they wouldn't need to worry about games, and if they were worried about it, just come to me and I'd put some on for them. They wanted to know how much I wanted for it, and I said, well, if you could give me what I paid for it, because I've hardly used it, to be quite honest. It's in the box, packaged. I'll charge it up and make sure it works, and I'll put it on for 8 hours and see how quickly the battery dissipates. And everything was hunky-dory. It was just as I'd put it away. They gave me £210 about 9 o'clock at night. And I had a voucher of £100 that I got for my birthday, because I found it because I was going through my cupboards, and of course there was my birthday money, and I hadn't used a voucher, and it was an Amazon voucher. So I thought to myself, I've got 310 quid. How much is this damn thing? I know that they were talking about the £500 mark. So I had a look, and it was in stock again at Amazon, right? And they had two versions that they had in stock. They weren't doing the huge bundles that Game and everything else were doing. But the first one was £399, and the next one was £425, which came with Mario Kart World, the game that is supposed to be the launch game to get. So I've got 210, £310. It's 425. I think I'll get it. I'll bite the bullet. So I bit the bullet, and there it is, just there. And then I started to sort of like say, is this going to be buyers? Am I going to be regretting buying it? And of course, I've looked at all the arguments in regards to the Switch too. I totally agree, and I haven't changed my mind about this, that Nintendo have changed their business platform to be a money grab. Everything is going to be a money grab now. The games are going to be 80 quid. Expansion packs are going to cost you money, etc., etc. Now, there is a caveat to that, because as soon as I turned it on, and it transferred my data across from my other Switch, which it can do quite easily, by the way, and quite quickly. You just have to be very close to each other. Oh, by the way, the thing that was awful about it, you have to use the original chargers to do it. I put in a USB charger from my block here, which is USB-C, and it recognised it was charging, but it would not transfer the data unless I put the original charger in. Weird that. It must be because of the amount of power draw it needed, and the ones that I was using wasn't high enough. But anyway, I digress. Once I transferred the data across, I went to the shop, and it said certain patches were there, and they didn't cost you a penny. So things like Mario Odyssey, one of the launch game of the last Switch, free. But if you wanted Twilight, the two Twilight games, Breath of the Wilds and the something Princess or whatever it was, $7.99. But it called it an upgrade and expansion pack. Now, I haven't put my 2 cartridges in yet, but I have bought them. But apparently, it looks very much to me like this expansion pack is not anything new. There's no new mapping or area or something for you to go to. It's some sort of Zelda app that goes to your mobile phone, helps you play the game a little bit better, and gives you a book that tells you about all the creatures in it, so you can have your smartphone looking at all the creatures that you find and all this sort of stuff. Oh, I'm not interested in that. So, really, I could have just done with the patch like it was with Odyssey, which cost nothing, right? So, yeah, this is where I'm saying cash-grabbing Nintendo, right? Is it a cash grab for the console's point of view? No, not so much. It does have a better Joy-Con design, and it's got mouse functionality. It's a bigger screen. It's got a faster processor, a different GPU. From what I can tell, the battery is the same, which is a problem that people are talking about as a possible power drain. And its backward compatibility was under a question mark. Now, I watched a number of these videos as well about how the software works. Now, apparently, it's a totally redesigned, the GPU and everything, right? So there is instead of putting an emulator on there, you run an app and it loads the cartridge into the app, right? It's actually a translation layer. That's a different thing. A translation layer is different to an app, right? And I always will think of it that way. Some people are going to argue with me here, but I don't look at it. You put the cartridge in, it goes through the translation layer and then goes to the hardware and translates it right to its new form. Which is why when you go to backward compatibility, you do get improvements without actually doing anything. So a game might be capped at 30 frames, but the producer of the game might have thought, I'll put in enough forward thinking that you could actually uncap it to 60 without doing anything, right? So when you run it through the translation layer, you can go into the options. You can actually uncap it from 30 to 60, and it's got more grunt, and it therefore is faster. Now it loads faster anyway because of the bandwidth and the memory and how it all works, right? So it's never impressed me, even with the PS5, how quickly a game loaded. I just went, oh, that's great. It's nice. It's not the reason why I want an extra £100 on top of how much this console costs, is because it's using an SDD drive, and in this particular instance, it's the memory it uses and how fast it loads it into. So it's going to be very interesting on how this translation layer works, because there are stuff that, even with it, causes things like screen tearing. And the reason for this, just to put in simple terms, is when a game is designed, it does one of three things, okay? Its main grunt is the CPU, or the main grunt is the GPU, or it's a combination of both, right? If the grunt is CPU, then basically you're not going to have a problem with graphics, and therefore the grunt of the CPU is going to make it go quicker. Thumbs up. GPU, basically, it's going to a new GPU. It might not be totally backwardly compatible, and so therefore you might get screen tearing. Yeah, using both, hopefully you get a little bit more of a stability and a little bit faster, but you're not going to see exceptional differences in quality. So this machine is in its first week. It's in its bench days. Those days that I think back to when I had my Amiga 1000, I'd just bought it. What was out there? Next to nothing. And everybody's looking at their back catalogue and going, I don't see anything too different. Well, no, you won't. It's a next-gen console that you're playing your old stuff through. You're not going to see a brand new spanking game, are you? With these cartridges. So I am looking at it as, it's a slight cash grab. There's a lot of things to like about it. I'm getting some enjoyment out of it, but I'm looking at it that the enjoyment will be there later on. But it also depends on how much I'm going to use it. And from that point of view, it's an unknown, because I didn't use my Switch 1 that much. I bought the Mario games. So I bought Mario World, Mario Odyssey, the 2 Zelda games, the Mario All-Stars bundle, etc., a few things. Okay. But I didn't buy everything. So I did buy Pikmin. I didn't buy Luigi's Mansion. So I'm going to see if I can get that cheap. But apparently it's still about 28 quid, 30 quid. So it's not going to be that much of a difference. So, and could I use it on my channel? Oh, absolutely. I've got a HDMI splitter card here and a capture card that does 4K. I could do some videos. Mario Kart World, what do I think of it? Played it for an hour. What do I think of it? Not much. It's Mario Kart. with a open world bit. It's fun. I got quite excited playing it and coming first and second and a few of those things. I like the roaming of the outworld, and I could go in my own pace wherever I wanted to go. I'm not into these trophies and stuff. Oh, you've unlocked this, you've unlocked that, so it's not a big thing for me. But it's no Forza. They keep mentioning that in the videos. It's no Forza, and it's not supposed to be. Is it an 80 quid game? I'm glad I got it digital. I've never bought all the Mario Kart games for me to go, oh, I'm a prima donna and I therefore must have this one because it's the 9th release in the Mario Kart series and I've got all the other 8 cartridges in physical media. That's different to Mario, you know, where it's like Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Mario Odyssey, you know, and so forth. I've got those. Everyone I bought I've still got. And in some ways it's similar to Zelda. Ever since the SNES version of Zelda I've bought them. There's a couple I'm missing that were, again, were for the Switch actually. They were the ones that look a bit like Mario World. There's 2 of them that I haven't got. Am I interested in Kirby and all of that sort of stuff? No. Metroid Prime, yes. I wouldn't mind a Metroid Prime on this, the new one. I didn't even buy the last one. I think it's Metroid Prime Brutal, something like that. So there's a number of things that I'm excited to actually go back and get and play. When I had my jailbreak, I didn't play an awful lot either. I just never got round to it. I see myself as getting round possibly to this one a little bit more because they're not the full-flung Forza stuff. It's stuff you can just quickly switch on. And that brings me to the first game that I bought for it, which is called Fusion Frenzy. It's in the eShop. It's £14.99. It is basically Wipeout. It was actually there in the eShop for the very first Switch, but it wasn't called then Fusion Frenzy. It was called Fusion FC something or other. It was basically, what is Fusion Frenzy? It's Wipeout and F-Zero joined. And its gimmick is that the pads that are on the floor that are go faster stripes, they're blue and orange. You change your vehicle colour to go over them. So if you go over if your colour of your vehicle is blue and you didn't change it and you went over orange, it would slow you down. But then when you went over the blue one, it would speed up again. But if you managed to switch it to orange when you went over the orange and then switched it to blue when you're going over the blue, then you'd be going super fast. And you've also got boost and jump. And the nicest thing about it is that was I never found in Wipeout is you had strafe left and right. Right? So at the top you've got bumpers. You can actually strafe slightly left into the middle of the track if you were too close to the right. I used to have to keep bending the front of the craft inwards and then bump into the next barrier, and just like a ping pong effect, I was just basically bouncing around like a ping pong ball. This one's got a left and a right strafe. Now that might be in the latest Wipeouts, I'm not sure, but that was the last time I played Wipeout. I had that problem all the time, and I never found a good way around it. Fusion Frenzy, $14.99, best $14.99 to spend in the eShop at the moment, right? Forget all the Twilight Zone expansion pack and all of that sort of stuff. Fusion Frenzy, about the best thing out there at the moment, and I feel I will play that more than Mario World Kart, to be quite honest. But that's me. So my life with the Switch 2 has been a fun, entertaining journey so far, with an unknown on how much I'm going to be using it. Should you get it? Up to you. If you can sell your old one and get this one, why not? If you can't sell your one, you want to keep it, have you got £425 for an upgrade for games that are not really out there at the moment? They say it's a major launch with 30 odd games. I digress. They're 20 odd patches and about 10 new games, of which Mario is the king of them all, and the others are games that you can get on Steam and so forth, like Cyberpunk and all of this sort of stuff. Not interested. It was Cyberpunk will still play better on my PC than it will the Switch. So you get my meaning on this. Definitely think twice if you can afford it. And to me, it cost £100. Okay, I lie there a little bit because the other thing I bought was a memory card for it, and you have to use their proprietary card, the one that's got an EX on it. There are ones out there by SanDisk that are not Nintendo branded, but they're not much cheaper, and they're quite expensive, like 40-50 quid. But do look around. There are ones cheaper, but be prepared. If they are knockoff, you've lost your money. Like I said, I was very careful, and I bought a branded. So everything's working hunky fine. That's the end of what I watched on YouTube and my feelings on the Switch 2. I hope that fills you in with bits of information that I know. And we'll move on to the next bit, which is films, TV, and soundtracks on YouTube. And we start off with my friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings. And I've talked about him an awful lot. But this is just his content this week. You've got my top 5 comedy films, 1954, and I think it goes to 1961, I think, at the moment I'm up to. My Star Trek Collection Part 4, which is the end of that particular section. Unboxing packages for my 65th birthday. Happy birthday to you, matey. Hope you got my birthday message to you. Doctor Who review, Planet of Fire, the one episode before Peter Davison left the role. X-Files Season 4 Episode 6 review, and live with me on Wednesday. My God, man. And there I am. I can just about get my blog out. So, what can I say? I mean, okay, I'm working, and I've got a sick elderly mother. But, gee, even so, it makes me feel very, very guilty. Thank you so much for all your content. Absolutely brilliant. And here's another person that does quality content rather than how much you bring out. And that's Mondo Celovic Movies. And I've mentioned him before because he fills me in with all my horror knowledge. But he did a video this week, the Halfway to Black Friday Mega Haul plus Vinegar Syndrome subtitles. So he's a member of Vinegar Syndrome. He's basically bought a package that he gets videos every month from, and obviously he's doing a Black Friday, halfway to Black Friday, so about what he's picked up in the last couple of months. Absolutely fantastic. There's some obscure stuff in there I've never even heard of, but they sound intriguing. So that's brilliant. Absolutely lovely. I'm not worthy, honestly, to kiss his boots, to be quite honest. And we move on to my friend Pete, Playtendoguy. He did some 4K pickup haul from HMV and I think it was Argos. I don't think it was Amazon. Some absolutely classic stuff in there. A lot of Clint Eastwood stuff and all that sort of stuff. And he did some little shorts. You know that YouTube like to do shorts. He did some unboxings of his stuff that he got for his Switch 2. So obviously he's got a Switch 2, but he's a big gamer. And of course, he's got a huge Switch library, which I haven't got. So it makes perfect sense for him to have bought a Switch 2. Hope he's having immense pleasure playing that. And that was my experience with Pete this week. Playtendoguy definitely got a great channel. I put him in my Discord all the time when he releases a video. Please go look. Then I watched Did You See That? And he had a lot of content out this week because there's a lot of things going on with Did You See That the last months or so. So he did a 1-hour conversation with Rashid G Reviews. 2 talks that are... Z Talks, should I say, not 2 talks. Z Talks episode 69. So he does these live talks every now and again. They were brilliant. Salt Path, which is a 2025 movie, did a review of that. And an episode called No More, and it looks like this, No More, like this. And he's talking about stuff that he's removing from his channel that he's not going to do so much of. If you do, it's not going to be under any banner, like Z Talks taste test or something like that. He's getting rid of some of the stuff that he thinks doesn't work, carrying on with things that that do work, and some new stuff that he hopes will work from now on. And he was just mentioning really about stuff that just weren't working, weren't fun anymore, or just, really had come to their natural end. So that was brilliant. Moving on to Jim Jam Movies, who I know and I met the other Friday. He did a live event on the 4th of the 6th. This was just a couple of hours before I went live with Ian. So I went on there and took the piss out of him for about an hour. That was quite fun. And then he did a little video called Expensive Old Gold Releases. Now, you might not know this, but he's a very big network fan. And Old Gold are a company that bought the network license and started bringing out the network titles. But what they did was they put a tenner on top of every title. And there's no change to them other than their logo on the label. The cases are the same, the discs are the same, the content's the same. No remastering, extra tenner. So he basically showed off some of the expensive ones and that you could naturally buy the normal ones from charity shops of network titles. Don't necessarily have to go down the Old Gold route to get them. So an explorative little video, definitely worth a watch. And then you got my mate, Through the Lens. He did a review, The Life of Chuck. I tend to watch his reviews after I've seen the picture, but they're definitely thought-provoking, done in a slightly different way than normal. Definitely, I think, worth a choice, worth a look. Please have a little look, give him a like, or subscribe to him. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And Soundtrack City is the YouTube channel I watched this week for my soundtrack stuff. I listened to a track called Rudy, a film that had the music done by Jerry Goldsmith. The whole suite is there, just over an hour of it, and it made me go and watch the film. It's a Jerry Goldsmith score that I've got in my collection, but I've never watched the film, and I really enjoyed it. Have you ever done that before? Have you ever bought a soundtrack because of a composer, but never actually watched the film? Have you then go to watch the film after you've listened to the soundtrack? Very interested to know your thoughts on that. Happens to me all the time, but then again, I'm a big follower of stuff that's done by composers, and I've bought or inherited, and not necessarily have I seen the film. So, I only know it from a music perspective. Coming to the last bit now, and it's Game and Tech YouTube, okay? So we come across some of my friends that I've known for years and years and years, and they're part of my Discord and all that sort of stuff. So we've got Down the Rabbit Hole, and Wee's done a couple of videos this week. He's done Kenner's original land speeder for the Star Wars universe. So it's the original land speeder that Luke and Ben Kenobi travelled on when they were on Tatooine. It was very nice to see. I can understand why it's a collector's item. From my point of view, I think if I was a kid and I'd got that, I'd be the same as him. I think it's a one-trick pony. It doesn't really do much. It's very expensive for what it does. It does hold a couple of your figures, but really it's a lump of plastic. And it's a vehicle that's got 3 wheels. It's neither here nor there. I'd rather have had a couple of figures, I think, and it would have been far less. He also did D&D We Lived This Moment from Stranger Things. So I did watch it, although not that I understood it too much, because he was talking about his D&D days. But Stranger Things has got something in it that he's actually lived what went on in his Dungeons and Dragons game that they were actually talking about that happened in Stranger Things. So an interesting video that you need to sort of, I would say, look at the episode before fully understanding what's being mentioned. Although, I must admit, he does a great job at explaining things I did not understand. It was just, I'd understand it a lot better if I'd have seen it myself. So that was from Down the Rabbit Hole. Then we get to gaming royalty, Canadian royalty, Robert's Retro Gaming. And oh my God, this week, what's he brought out? Dwarf Fortress Classic Episode 4, Dwarf Fortress Episode 24, No Man's Sky Episode 43, ZX Spectrum, he played a version of Galaxian, Atari 8-bit, he played Shadow World, Darts, Submarine Commander, and Airstrike Ellie, I think that is. Those were all on the Atari 8-bit. And I must admit, I watched all of those and enjoyed myself immensely. It's great to watch these little 10-minute segments of people watching playing gameplay, so you sort of get to know or what to expect if you load it up yourself. So absolutely fantastic. And I'm just going to check on my mum now, and then I'll be straight back, and we're near, very, very near the end. I'll say about 10 minutes or so. And Robert, absolutely wonderful. Keep doing that stuff. We've got Steve's Gaming next. Steve's Gaming Part 2, should I say. Flipping heck. And I always do my little salute. You bastard, fucking hate you little shit. And the world awaits his second channel. But while that's happening, his output is equally as good as it always was. Home soft discs, 62 and 63. Commodore 64 time he played. A game or two there. Amiga Degeneration, I'd forgotten about that game. I haven't played that for a while. BBC short game of a game called Skirmish, which was a bit like Joust, and a Commodore 64 game called Hot Pot. Brilliant. Love all that stuff. I've probably missed a couple there because even with Robert, they're bringing their stuff out on the Sunday that I'm doing the blog, so I've still probably got catch up to do. My appreciation and salute to you, Steve. Fantastic. Please go and join his channel if you can. It's brand new because he's lost his original channel. I'd love to have you back as a subscriber if you originally subscribed to him and you came from him from my channel. Absolutely brilliant. We got Colin Jones, aka Ponder, who I talked about earlier, who did a little comment to me. He did Tuber's High Score Challenge, which was Gallagher, I think it was, yeah, that he was playing there. And Mainmeister High Score Kerfuffle, which is Punch-Out, the old Punch-Out arcade game, yeah. I played that a couple of times in the arcades. There weren't that many around in my town because I'm not by the seaside. I used to see it through Travelling Fair that used to come every year to my town. And if we went on holiday, it was at that time where it was really mid-80s. So it was quite a deluxe cabinet then, having two screens. But yes, I did manage to play at least a couple of goes on that as an arcade game. 20th Century, and my salute to you, Colin Jones. Keep bringing that stuff out. It won't be long before we'll be doing another blog, and I must remember to do a comment. 20th Century Gaming did a Spectrum live stream. Everybody was calling him a turncoat for doing it. No, he was just doing some stuff, and he did his bottom from 20 to 16, I think, of Spectrum games that he played back in the day. Lovely, or top 20 Spectrum games it was called at the time that I was watching it. That was brilliant. And we've got my old friend Mainmeister, who did a Sunday stream of Ocean Software, a Sid show, and a Friday waffle to keep us entertained on what's going on in his week. And that's the end of that. That's the written side of the blog. Now, not much arrived this week video-wise, so I've got pretty much no trailers either because I've been watching mostly TV stuff and there's been very few steelbooks arriving. So what I do believe that will change next week. I have got some stuff because I think I've even got some emails saying that they're being sent for me for tomorrow. So the only thing I can really do is go to the overhead cam if it's on. I think it is. Yes, it is. Just show you the box to the Nintendo 2. This is what you get. A little box with a Mario Kart symbol if you bought the bundle. Some information about what you get inside the box, which is the Joy-Con connector if you wanted to play it as a sort of like controller, HDMI wires and all of that sort of stuff. Nothing much on the back either, just tells you the age range and another little picture of Mario, and then Nintendo and some information in regards to your serial number and stuff. Dinky little box. I will say that the quality of the Nintendo Switch to me is better than the original. I do also think that the major docking station is different. It's got fans and so forth, and it's got a network port. But this is what you get. If I do an overhead cam again, boom, 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 boom. This is what it looks like. There we go. And you can see I haven't got that many games. I've been playing Fast Fusion, like I said, and a few other things. But I haven't got that many games. You can see it was just a transfer from my original machine. The joypads come off with a little clip at the back. Look, if I press it, it just pulls off. It's magnetic. It's a mouse as well. And it just clips back in. Like that. Very, very simple. Much better than the sliding in, sliding out of the other one. The memory card, just so that you know, is actually underneath the kickstand. So there's the kickstand, which, by the way, goes all the way. It can be flat or it can be up. And the memory stick is just there. Not really very detailed inside the instruction manual about that. Other than that, this is standard affair, really. It's you can see it's a much bigger screen. Very bright, very nice. And it fits in my dock over here, which I'm just doing now. And I'll go back to the camera. So what's next week going to bring for me? Well, who knows? That's something that we'll know, won't we? Next Sunday. Look, it's just come up on the screen because it's turned itself on. So, and with that bombshell, should I say, because that might mean that I ought to sort of like suddenly start playing games in 4K. I'm going to say salute to you. I hope you've enjoyed this blog, and thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you next week, hopefully. If you can, leave a comment and a like. Bye-bye.